Like with a small hat, for example, like this, most spring-summer hats you tend not to line. Lining adds extra warmth, it adds a nice finish to it, and it also covers any stitches from where you stitch on trims onto the hat. It's a great way of kind of covering things like that. So if you're stitching your trim on your hat, you don't have to worry about being really neat underneath because it's all going to get covered. But with felt, with winter hats, you tend to nearly always say, unless it's a little fascinator cocktaily hat, which sits flat against the head. With something with a little hat like this, with the block that you've used, you could just block a piece of fabric over it. You don't stretch it, I mean you don't stiffen it, but you block the fabric over it, and you then can either just tack it or glue it with the rubbery Yoo-hoo glue onto the inside underneath the petersham. Okay. So blocked, and if you were working with quite a complex kind of hat that fits quite closely to the head, a blocked lining is a good way to go. But as a general lining, the ones that are in your instructions, so you can have the ones that are in your instructions are your three basic kinds of linings, okay? So we have the gathered lining, which I say is the lining that I tend to use the most, because if you've got a bit of room in the top of the hat, the gathering sits at the top there. It will sit nicely over the head. It's a very multifunctional lining, just the same as the pleated lining is number 2. They're very multifunctional, and if you were to buy ready-made linings from Mr. Hart and Abraham, they would come as pleated linings, which is like this. Okay.
What size is this one?
They come in one size, but they tend to be quite long, so you just trim it as short as you need. If the fitting is too big, then you pleat it in. But when you're making your own, you can make it to fit. Okay. So this is an example of a gathered, a slightly shabby, distraught sample now of a gathered lining. Okay. And this is the pleated lining. And then number 3 here, which is a lining like this, okay, where you really are measuring the size of the hat and creating the circular top section, which is called the tip, and the sideband section, okay. So the gathered lining is one of the easiest ones to do, and it's one that you can do by hand. So, and this is the same principle for all of them, with the main section is your sideband, which is a rectangle of fabric that you cut on the bias, okay? So on the cross of the fabric.
That's on bias.
Yeah. Okay. So whatever your hat measurement is, so say for example it's 57 centimetres, I would cut a rectangle that was 59 centimetres. So I've got my 57 centimetres head size plus a centimetre either side for seam allowance, okay? And then either by hand or by machine, I would stitch down the side. Now, the depth, as I say, you can cut it afterwards, but if you're making your own, try and make it as close to the depth as possible. So the gathered lining comes right up to the top. So your depth is from the centre top to the side, okay? So say for example that's 20 centimetres, okay? So you would do your 20 centimetres plus about a centimetre and a half, couple of centimetres on the top. Okay? So that equals your triangle, your rectangle. So you'd cut that out and then you would sew it up with your centimetre side allowance there and make it into a cylinder. Okay? Now with a gathered lining, so with an iron that out and iron over, say, whatever it is, a centimetre and a half or 2 centimetres over the top. Okay, so you end up with a shape like this. Then, can you see this large running stitch going through that? You go through large running stitch all the way around the side, the top, like that. And then, as you pull it, that's what gathers it. Okay, so it gathers it all into the middle like that. and you secure it. Now, having a little bit of a hat bottom. So to prevent you seeing any of the hat, because the hat will be, the lining will be in the hat like that, to prevent you seeing anything in there, what you would then do is just cut a small circle of the same fabric, well spotted, like this, and that just gets stitched over on the inside. So this is the inside of the lining that will sit inside the crown, and then you would just stitch around there, and so that would stop you seeing anything through there.
But Barry, you wouldn't make that kind of lining.
Yeah, we'd still make it for a Barry. Yeah, because it's on the bias.
No, I understand all that, but maybe I must have a go in the shop.
Well, no, this is your couture. This is your handmade hat. Yeah. Linings, if you get a lining in a hat at a shop, it would tend to be more something like this.
Okay, so I would make it proper like that then. Yeah. Okay.
So that's a really good kind of one size fits all.
Can lining be made as long as it's anything lightweight? It doesn't have to breathe.
And this is something that says in here, it's not just a thing of it being lightweight and breathable. One really, really important thing about lining is that it has structure to it. This lining has to hold itself up in the hat.
Oh yeah.
It either gets stitched or glued underneath the peachum there. It's got nothing holding it in here. If you have like a heavy floppy fabric, it's just going to go like that, okay?
Should you stitch it up though? Conceal it behind those gathers. We don't need to.
The problem is, if you did that, it would still flop here.
Oh, I get it.
It would still flop like that. So you want to go for a fabric. Things like cottons are very good, silks, Duchess satins. There's a list of materials here. Here we go. When choosing a fabric for your lining, it's critical that you choose a suitable fabric. Something that's not too saggy, that will hang out of the hat. Duchess satin or a stiff taffeta are ideal. Fine linen can work as well as organza for summer hats, calicos, cottons and things like that as well. So if you grab the fabric and it stays up like that, you know you're onto a winner.
I know it's in a situation with a berry. It wouldn't really matter, would it? I mean, I understand with some things you want it to be structured. But with the berry, I could use the silk if I wanted to.
As long as it's got some structure to it.
Still need structure with the berry?
Yes, yes, any hat. Because it will, any hat you put it into it will still flop. It's just saggy.
So this will be showing in the inside.
Yes.
You wouldn't want to do it that something covers all these.
No, now that is a really crap example now. This has been...
Is that the weight you're talking about?
Well, this is like a summary weight. Yeah. Anything that has structure to it, say Duchess satin, kind of a heavyish silk and things like that.
Silk,
If you hold it, literally, get your fabric, hold it up like that. If it goes like that,
okay, I've got you.
if it falls over, it's not going to be good. If it stands up.
Thank you very much. That's a very good description.
So, it's with the pleated beret, the pleated lining, sorry. I've got berets on the brain now.
Sorry, that's me, isn't it? I know. It's a very good.
You are our beret lady,
Lee. Tonight.
So it's the same, but with the measurements, you need to make sure that your top measurement, which is what we call the tip, and the two sides of the side band all add up to the inside of your hat. Okay, and this is a really good one to do on a machine, because you make your cylinder just the same as with the other one, but rather than folding it over, you need to evenly pleat. So you need to, it's that mathematical thing of working out where the quarters are, the eighths are, pleating at the same amount, so you have even pleats at every eighth around that circle. Okay, so it means that you can, for example, if you see that plant pot shape in front of Marianne. So if, for example, you wanted a lining which was going quite up to the top, you could do quite a small circle tip and then a longer side band bit. But with a strange shape like that as well, you don't necessarily need the lining going all the way up. It's just so it will sit above the head and things. So
you can
again,
measure when it's on.
yeah. So yeah, gathered lining says good to do on a sewing machine. And the blocked lining is similar to this, but again it needs to be more precise in terms of you have your rectangle on the outside, you have your tip, and then you would block it over a dome block. But it's a bit more of a faffy one because it just means more blocking and things like that. The pleated and the gathering are much more kind of universal. And they look brilliant. I mean, this looks really tatty now, and the pleating's all uneven.
Yeah.
But when you have that and a beautiful Dutch satin, and you've got all these lovely even pleats in there, it is beautiful, and it makes a hat really luxurious. So when you put it into the hat, so when you put it into the hat,
Can you use it?
oh yes please, the join goes at the back, centre back, okay? So imagine this is your Petersham that's coming out here, you pop it in and you line up your centre back with the centre back.
So it wouldn't need to go to the top because this is very deep. You could work out where
So that changes the measurement thing, doesn't it? A hat like this, if it's sitting like this and it's very deep, you wouldn't just do a lining which will just sit there, but you don't necessarily need to go all the way to the top, especially as this is asymmetric.
Yeah.
So you would say measure your own head and do it slightly longer.
just so it's comfy in there.
Yeah. So it's sitting in there. So yes, you pop your lining in and pin it in. So again, just now, if you've measured it, the measurements will be pretty much there.
Sorry, I am thinking of berries again.
You're obsessed.
No, only for now. It's only because I got too long ago. After that, I'm going I've already no, because I was asking you the next step, but of course, I've left my bit, and then you would put the lining in, would you? And then, because you were talking about steaming it over.
Do all the steaming over and everything first.
Yeah.
Even put your Petersham in first. A lining is one of the last things that you put in.
Right. So
Okay.
Right.
Petersham, trimming, all of those things.
Wire.
Wire. Lining is one of the very, very last things that you do.
I thought you said you did the Petersham binding after the wire.
If you were doing, yes, that's your exception to the rule.
Okay.
If
Yes,
you're
if you-
putting a lining in a hat which is Petersham bound.
Yeah.
So you would make sure that it's pinned at the centre back, and you just roughly work out where the centre front is, pin that to the centre front, the sides, and then if there's any excess,